All right, people. Here we are again. It is that time, that place in the universe for another episode of Iris of Our Eye, number 26. I'm pretty sure 26. I'm sitting down with Moonmagic. I don't actually know her real name, her government name. I assume she prefers Moonmagic. That's her performing artist name, and I think it's a dope name. And I met her probably, well, actually through Threads technically, but only because of a different artist that I just interviewed. Put the episode right here. The inspirational rapper, I want to say that one was 22 or maybe 23. And that guy was like, hey, I booked this chick. She's really cool. And he does like conscious hip hop. She's also does conscious hip hop. So she's a rapper. I guess, lyricist slash writer, because if you're writing your own words, that definitely counts. And I maybe do you make your own beats at all?
I do. I produce and I also DJ. So I'll make a lot of fun mixes on my sampler. I do have a DJ controller. Sometimes I bring that out too. And a lot of it's a mixture of things I produce or other songs. And sometimes I do a mixture between the two. And sometimes you'll catch me on the keys too, quite often in shows, adding that element into my live loops as well while I'm rapping.
Cool, cool. That's awesome. And then is there anything else, any other forms of art that I am oblivious to in this current situation?
That is my primary form of art, honestly. But I also do visual art, and I'll sell that at shows or give it away at shows. I love painting as a really nice form of release, especially if I feel like I don't have anything to say. I just feel a lot.
Hmm.
Also, I'm a professional tarot reader, which I think is a form of an art, an expression, and an educator, which is not very has to do with art specifically, but I do workshops with youth as well as young adults quite often. And am an educator, was a full-time teacher, and kind of go back and forth between that and music in and out of the full-time classroom. And those are pretty much all the main hats that I wear. I do graphics on the low too, flyers. Most of my graphics you'll see I do completely myself. So definitely wear a lot of hats as an independent artist and have a lot of skills. Sound engineering as well as something that I also do is provide sound for shows. But my main artistry is definitely my rapping, live looping, DJing, producing. That's my bag.
Absolutely. Cool, cool. I think, yeah, especially as an independent artist who isn't under a label that wants to enslave you and make all their money off of your work, that like you have to do that. It's like the entrepreneurial spirit of like, I gotta do it. I wear every hat until I can make enough money to pay somebody else to do it for me. Hopefully, that's at least that's how I envision it's supposed to go. Because I'm still very much just like wearing every hat that I have to wear until I can start paying somebody else to do it for me.
And I think also, I think there's a big aspect that's really important about collaborating with others, finding others who are at your same level, maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower. But usually, you try to find someone at your level or higher who is willing to collaborate with you for free, just out of the sense of like they feel like it's mutually beneficial. I think
Mhm.
mutually beneficial relationships as an independent artist is really important. There is a lot of this idea of like it is entrepreneurialism there, but there's also this flawed idea that it's like very individualistic and I'm gonna make it on my own, and my music is just gonna be good enough and I'm gonna get there by myself, which I think is tied to the rugged individualistic corporate mentality, capitalistic mentality of the United States. And I've found personally, the more that you open yourself up to coordinating, whether it's like, hey, I'm just gonna practice working on this skill and give it to an artist who I think is dope. Maybe they're a little bit, I would say, like not as sharpened in this area, but there might be really sharp in another area that I'm not, and how can I help them in this area, and then they help you in that area. And it's a really cool, fun way to watch each other grow. And I've been doing a lot more of the just collaborating with others and exchanging our ideas and our skill sets for free, just out of the pure love of the art, but in a way that's mutually beneficial and actually helping us both grow, instead of just giving it for free to the public and not necessarily like growing from it or pushing the boundaries and pushing the envelope. So I will say I do a lot of it on my own, but I also have a lot of great help and a great team and folks who are super talented who I've been fortunate enough to team up with and we continue to partner with. And I think that's really where the juice is as an independent artist, because we all out here trying to do it on our own. And I think the more that we work towards the goal together, we'll see that our interests can align and it can be mutually beneficial for everyone involved.
Absolutely. Teamwork makes the dream work. And the most powerful force on the face of the planet is human collaboration, whether that be like building the atomic bomb or working to on any other actual mundane goal, not so like destructive, obviously, but how you're saying, like working with other artists to help each other grow. And there's a word I just saw it earlier today. It's I think it's Hawaiian. I didn't do enough actual research into it, but it's like Ani or it's Ayni, and it's like this like I don't even remember the exact definition, but it's just that this concept of like reciprocity, that like you pour from your cup when your cup is overflowing, and then hopefully it comes back around, and just putting out the idea of like karma, that you're putting out good so that good comes back to you and loops on itself forever. Hopefully it's just the lemniscate of infinite awesome.
But is to definitely make sure that you find people who like I said, it's mutually beneficial. I think sometimes when artists do try to approach the collaboration space, especially as a new artist, it takes a lot as an artist just to get to know yourself, your own needs, your own boundaries, your own level of energy, your energy budget. We all have an energy budget, especially as independent artists. If you are doing multiple things on the side too, in order to make a living, you really have to budget your energy and your time wisely. And I think where people get tripped up too is maybe also having bad partnerships with certain people in the past, and that is a learning lesson because maybe you weren't didn't express yourself and what you need from the situation, or maybe you felt taken advantage of, or vice versa, maybe they felt taken advantage of. And I think as you continue to just show up again and find the right people and the right community where it is mutually beneficial, and like you said, it continues to just be this thing where like I pour out what I do naturally, you pour out what you do naturally, and we're both just taking away so much from it. That really is like the juice. But it can, I'm not gonna lie, it's not as easy just finding a team and finding people who you collaborate and work well with, especially as a new artist who might be searching for your own sound, or just trying out many different things. I know when I first started, I was really like kind of I don't want to say narrow-minded, but like like a horse with the little blinders on. That's the visual. I was the horse with the blinders on, right? And I was like, no, I'm gonna, I knew that I already had a lot that I felt like I had to prove coming into the space. I was like, I'm gonna do it this way, And I definitely wish I would have listened to more people early on and been more open to the feedback and collaboration at the time. But also on the other hand, I think that can be really hard as a new artist because you're also searching for your voice and who you are. So everybody's giving you all this feedback and you're like, well, I don't know what I'm just trying to figure out what I'm trying to do, and it's a little bit much. So that was a really big factor to where there was a certain time period where I wasn't collaborating. There was a time period where I was collaborating a lot with people, and then there was a time period where I wasn't, and that was simply because I was really searching within myself, and all the noise outside of me, it was really hard to filter. What kind of artist am I trying to be? What does my voice sound like to me? And now that I've done it for as long as I had, and have had so much experience in that and feel comfortable in certain ways of myself as an artist, I'm much more able to like be open in a way and say, okay, well, how does that fit? And how can I challenge myself? And is that part of who I am or not? And you just take the feedback a little bit different and are able to really dive in a way that I feel like can be really difficult when you're first starting out. So definitely something to keep in mind for anyone listening to this who may be on this journey. We have a lot of ideas and expectations of things to happen super fast. And it's definitely a long haul game, and getting to know yourself and who you are as an artist takes some time,
Yeah, I recently watched a YouTube video where the guy said it this way. He was like, your 20s is like you're figuring it out, your 30s is you're building it, and your 40s is you're enjoying it. So it's like and I've definitely feel like that's a pretty accurate description of just like building yourself and finding yourself, and the process of self-development and self-growth is never ending journey, and it takes decades to like really see from where you start to where you finish. So it's like that patience of like slowing down and just living every day to the fullest. So then in a year, 5 years, 10 years, you're like, all right, there was an actual huge shift from where I started to where I am now.
Right? Because there's other people I'm sure you've met where like, you know, you see them at 15 and they're like so confident in where they are as an artist or just as a person, that you're like, man, I didn't know how to do that until I was double their age, you know? Things
Mm-hmm.
like that. It can be, my point being is not everybody starts from the same starting point. So I think that's another, I will say, trap, and that's, you know, in this game that, you know, you can start to fall into looking at other artists or what other people are doing, and comparing your journey to them and expecting yourself to be where they are in a certain amount of time, when you have your own development and journey that you're working through. And it can be really hard to look at that from a very objective lens, you know?
Yeah, no, it's comparison is the thief of joy. And the one thing that, yeah, the one thing that makes us all the same is that we're completely unique. So it's like you have to always be looking back where you were. And if you look at other people, it's like, and you're competing, if you're like in a sport, more sporting event, that like there is that level of like, oh, I do need to be better than this person to win. But it's like when you're basing your whole identity around always checking and like looking at what other people are doing, it's like you're never taking the time to look inside and actually be like, oh, like who am I? Or like what's going on for me?
Yeah, I feel that. For me personally, I try to not compete with other people. I think every time that I have tried or have gotten into that trap, it definitely takes away your joy. And of course, you know, rapping is competitive. You know what I'm saying? We can definitely be competitive. But I've also loved the spirit of like, I'm really not in competition with anyone but myself, and constantly getting better and improving that. And the more that I focus on that, the more that it brings me personal joy. Just because I can look back in the last 8 years that I've done this professionally and see how much I have grown as an artist and as a musician, and just the things that I'm able to do now, that looking back, I would be like super shocked and excited for myself. So for me personally, that helps me to continue to just remember why I do this and what I love about music and my joy for it. And that keeps me really grounded in my purpose, as I keep going on this trek and journey as an independent artist.
Totally, totally. So I'm just curious what brought you to art and rapping and beat making and all of the music. Like what in your life was it like something your parents put you onto, or is it just you've just naturally found your way there? Some I just for the people, for me, I'm curious.
Artistry and expression in all its ways, and basically tried almost everything as a kid. You know, like from a young age, I was in choir, I was in band, I was, you know, in cheer and dance. I was in theater, I was a theater kid, you know, wanted to act for a while, you know, all those different assets and buckets, but I just didn't really have the best, you know, I would say mentorship coming from my city. You know, there's not a venue in my city that I'm from, or like a place really for that to build that in kids. And you know, my mom did the best that she could, but I definitely think that it wasn't. It never really seemed like a real thing that I could really take serious. It was like, oh, this is a fun thing to do on the side. And I wish I would have taken it more serious, honestly, as a child. And so it really started, you know, my grandma, she was the choir director for her church and played the piano. And I grew up with that in the house. And my grandma was someone who was a very big caretaker in my life. And I'm named after my grandmother. And I also fell in love with the keys as a result of her. I grew up in a low income household, and my parents are not together anymore. And I also, in general, just come from a domestic violence situation, a lot of other, you know, sexual abuse and trauma and things that have happened in my life and in our household. That as a child, my only real goal was to get out.
Mm.
And so when I was in high school, I learned about financial aid about my sophomore, junior year of high school and college, school in general had always been something that was not extremely difficult for me. Like I was in the GATE program when I was younger, and even as a high schooler, like I could easily get A's or B's mostly, you know, a C every now and then, you know. I think I maybe got one D like my whole high school, maybe two. My whole high school, like our whole academic K through 12. So you know, but I also didn't put that much effort into it all the time. So when I found out about financial aid, I was like, oh, I can do this. This I can do, and I'm getting my one-way ticket out this beach, you know. So I immediately like made sure it was my mission to get nothing but straight A's for the next 2 years of high school, which I did, and then I went to college and literally had no idea what I was doing. My parents did not go to, my dad did not finish high school, and my mom did some college but did not complete it. So really had no idea what I was doing. Did all the applications pretty much by myself and with a high school advisor. And also during that time when I was in college, it was, you know, I was no longer in my town where there was no venues. I was now in LA County, and there was lots of venues and lots of hip hop shows and lots of culture and community happening, and, you know, activist events and things that, you know, I was able to really engage in and have meaningful connections and community and relationship in. And that really opened so much in me for just the possibilities of what was out there. And you know, even when I was younger, you know, I did little writing groups with my friends in, you know, like middle school, elementary school, and, you know, had little poetry books. But that was really the first time that I got to like go to a venue and see people rapping. And like, you know, there was a rap group on campus, the hip hop group, things like that, that just like really shaped me and my identity as a youth during that time period. And so after I graduated, I went to Teach for America, ended up teaching for 3 years, and that brought me to Sacramento. And inside all of that, I was extremely unhappy and just felt like I had no idea what was going on. You know, I think people in my generation and in general are sold this idea that you go to college, you work hard, you do the right thing, and at the end of that rainbow, there's supposed to be this pot of gold, and you know, it's gonna all make sense, and you're gonna have this nice job, and you're gonna be fulfilled, and a house, and you know, so much of the what's the word? Not ecosystem. What's the word?
Economy?
Economy. Thank you. So much of the economy really, really changed in the last 5 years, but you know, so much so in the last 10 years. That's a completely different dynamic, especially with the internet and how much more possibilities there are for being, you know, things that we can do as an independent artist today were not possible. And I think that that really changed a lot too for me. But really what happened was during that time period, I just was extremely unhappy and very had a lot of anger, a lot of anger, a lot of emotions that I felt about everything happening in the world. And you know, rapping just really became my outlet. It started with this place called Rhythm and Poetry, salute to them, that I just happened to find on Facebook one day, and it just was a beautiful community of poets and artists and people who are just kind of like, you can do whatever you want to do in this space, and we believe in you, and we see what you're trying to do and who you are. And that really opened me up to being like, wow. It was also the first time I ever saw people who were like legitimately doing this and taking it serious and what that looked like. And that was really like, oh, this can be like a legit career. This can be more than just a hobby I do on the side. This can be something that I can put out there and I want to put out there. And then from that moment, I catch the bug and was not looking back. And so my journey was definitely is a long journey to get to where I am. And I'm really grateful that I eventually made it to that place and where it's taken me, and all the twists and turns, because, you know, I love being able to teach and that opportunity being there and sub and working and in workshops with youth. And that's an avenue and a pathway that honestly I would not have even probably pursued had it not just happened that teaching kind of called me into the sphere and became something that really helped me to grow and develop and learn so much about myself and the world.
Awesome. Very very in-depth overview of the whole curvature, or the inciting incident, rising action, or climax exposition. Well, maybe not the climax. Probably still haven't found the peak of your life experience and all that, but definitely a very big broad brush. I like that. What do you feel like was the most important thing that you learned in that period of finding yourself?
Hmm. There's a lot of things that I learned that were really important. The first thing that comes to my mind and something I think about a lot is how much I want to encourage others and empower others to be who they truly are. I think that's something that I struggled a lot with as a child and had to really work through in my early adult years and solidifying my identity and who I am. And, especially if it's not a traditional pathway or is outside the norm or the box. There was a lot of opposition, I feel, at every corner. And it was very deterring and difficult. But I think what I learned through all of that is how important it is to empower yourself through that process and to really just follow who you are and be authentic to yourself and what you love, even if no one is supporting you, and even if it's scary, or even if you don't exactly know what it looks like, just being able to go out there and try it, and to do things based off more what you love than doing things based off of what you feel like you're supposed to do, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. It's that the Jim Carrey quote comes to mind. It's like, you can fail at what you hate. So why spend your time doing that when you can succeed at what you love doing? And if it makes you happy and fulfilled, that's so much more important and what the world needs than another. Not to say that lawyers and doctors aren't important, but you could just go to school and follow the model, but you could also carve your own path, and it's probably more difficult, but it's also, I believe, because that's what I'm doing with my life, it's going to be more worth it in the end versus going with the grain or against the grain. It's down to the individual choice, but it's just everybody's following without ever looking up. You're just going to follow the herd off of the cliff, I think, and I'd rather have some semblance of what's going on in the world.
Yeah. And just, really working through imposter syndrome. I think that's something really big for a lot of folks who come from similar backgrounds as mine and struggle to find themselves in general. That's something that I had to work through a lot and really be okay with standing on my own and being okay with no one else seeing the vision but me. And definitely as a child, right? If someone was like, even if I felt like I was right, you know what I mean? I'm wearing a pink dress or a blue dress, and there's nothing wrong with whatever dress I'm wearing. If someone was like, oh, you shouldn't be wearing that type of dress, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I will never wear this dress again. And I would think about the whole day about how I messed up from wearing that dress. And so there's a lot of trauma and social conditioning and just a lot of healing, a lot of healing that I can't even I don't know if our healing journey ends, but I definitely have gotten to a point in my life where I've seen the growth in it, and seen how much further along I am in my journey than I was, and how much more strength I have in myself than ever before. And, I was not in an environment as a youth where I was encouraged to have my own voice or encouraged to do anything against the grain or do anything except for doing what others wanted me to do. And that's something that throughout that process, I had to learn for myself where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do now that I was really out on my own and in a completely new city that nobody knew me, and really had the opportunity and ability to do anything I want. And then being blessed by finding a community that was also really supportive and gave me that love that I didn't really have as a child or as a youth in the way that I needed to develop me in the interests that I had.
Hmm. Yeah, no, you definitely. It's I think it's really a quote, but like this statistic that you're like similar to, or like if you an amalgamation of the 5 closest people in your life, and like also that I think also applies to like your income. That if you're surrounded by people that are making a lot of money, you also probably are making a lot of money, and vice versa. So it's like, yeah, finding community and finding that sense of self is crucial in your life. And I think a lot of people are suffering for not doing that or not going against the grain, and are kind of lost stumbling through life because, at least in my experience, that like finding the answers in yourself and like making the decisions is like you get to decide who you are, and you get to like have this like smorgasbord. What would be the other one? Like a not a cafe, but there's just like a line of food, and you just go down the line of food, and there's a bunch of food on both sides. What?
The conveyor belt.
No, it's the one where that's a Golden Corral is one, but I can't forget like what the word like Golden Corral, the type of restaurant it is, where you just go and there's a shit ton of food, you just pick and choose what you want. Buffet, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, buffet. You just like life is a buffet, and you're constantly making the choices based on the options that you think that you have, or that you're deciding that you have, or that you actually do have, and that you have to like whatever you decide is what you're gonna get. And people, if you don't decide, other people are gonna decide for you. And I prefer to feel like I have autonomy, that like you can be independent to some degree, but you also are interdependent on that community of people that are there to support you and that you're trying to support and build with and do awesome stuff with.
And that's the wild part too, is that I think, I mean, now, right, with the internet, I don't feel like it's the same, right? Because it's wild as a teacher teaching youth and seeing 9, 8, 10-year-olds have language and conversations that I didn't have until I was 21, you know? And I'm like, how do you even know about that? What do you guys do you even know what you're talking about? Why are you repeating that? Please don't.
Yeah, right.
But also there's this positive way of it too, where, you know, before, right, I think it's a lot harder to even know that you had a choice, right? Like, what was your, aside from your city, your home life, right? If you're not from a big city, and you're not from a well-off community, your home life in your city is all that you have as a reflection of the world. At least for me, right? I had never been on a plane until I was an adult. I had never really left my city, only gone to like the city next door. You know, I very few times had I left my city further than a couple, you know, further than an hour, basically. And so, you know, it's a very different than when you live in a city and are surrounded by all this. Cities in general, I think, are a really big, kind of like the internet, where you have lots of different experiences happening and you're learning from it. Where depending on what kind of city you're from, if your city is, like I said, not well off, and your home life is not enriching, you don't really even know that you have a choice. And I think that's where a lot of that ingrained social programming that really hurt us from being able to really find our path and our purpose in life. I didn't even know I had another alternative to showing up in the world. And I struggled as a youth figuring out how to show up in the world. I feel like I'm kind of a late bloomer, to be honest, in a lot of ways, at least when it comes to like my identity and who I am as a person. Because of that, it wasn't an option, and I didn't even know I had the option until basically after high school. And so it's, like I said, it's been a journey. It's a longer story than that even shortened, very long story that I gave. But I hope that whoever's listening to this, that it encourages them, regardless of where they've been on life and in their pathway, to just, you know, do what it is that makes them happy and continue searching for that if they don't know what it is, no matter where they are in life, no matter how old they are, no matter how much support they have. To just continue to dig deep and to navigate the treacherous waters, because there is a sandy beach and a mimosa somewhere.
Better late than never to bloom and be an individual. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. It feels kind of what you were saying. Oh man. Sheesh. There's something else, but I can't remember right now.
I have to say, it definitely has become actually a passion of mine now, to really, like I said, with the workshops I do with the youth, but also just encouraging other independent artists and those who are out here on this journey. So definitely, anybody listening to this, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me at Moonmagic Flows on all platforms. I love connecting with folks, whether it's something as simple as how to set up your BMI, how to get your first song on Spotify, how to find a community in whatever city you're in, things like that. It's always great to be able to pay that forward in a way that I am grateful for those who did that for me, and in ways that I didn't have either.
Right, so being a mentor for the people who didn't have one or don't have one right now.
Yeah, or just, at least share information. You know what I'm saying? I can't say that I know everything, but I definitely learned a thing or two. And at least I can tell you what I've done and doesn't work.
Hey, that's the most
Go down that.
important thing. Yeah. No, that's supposed to, like a smart person learns from their mistakes, and like a wise person learns from other people's mistakes. It's the thing that's coming to mind right now when I hear you say that. So usually this is the question I like to start on, but what is art to you? Like, how do you try to define that very broad?
Art is art.
Oh, okay, circular, I like that.
Art is art. I think that's simple. Like, art is life. Art is an expression of your heart, your energy, your aura, your essence, who you are. And that's what I love about it. As a child who didn't, I was always into art and expressing myself, but I never felt empowered to do it. And I love the way that art, even if you don't share it with anybody, which I spent many, many years not sharing it with anybody, it holds the special space for yourself to express however you're feeling. It is your energy, your true heart space, regardless of where it's at, good or bad. You know what I'm saying? I have plenty of tracks that I call them moon diaries. And what they are is basically a whole folder of unreleased moon diaries of music that I just, find a YouTube beat, or I got this beat from this person, but like I didn't really, maybe the song's talking about a topic that I don't really want to put out. A lot of it is honestly just like very depressing music. But I love that art holds space for that and allows me to channel that and release that, because that stuff, if you don't, without art, a lot of people would not be able to release their emotions or have a pathway to express how they feel. And I think being able to express how you feel is extremely important, if not in public, at least in private. And is a very strong, for me personally, I have gone in and out of therapy for a large part of my life and haven't really had the best luck with a lot of therapists, where I tend to be, I'm pretty self-aware. So a lot of times in therapy, it's like, oh, you're pretty much good. You don't really seem to need me. And it's like, no, take me deeper. Let's get stuff, and I love that art, like it is that this unfiltered space for yourself where you can go as deep as you want to go, or stay as shallow and comfortable too, and there's a place for all of it, right? Some of my music is very, very deep, and especially my early stuff and my mixtapes, and speaks very specific on like sexual abuse and domestic violence and trauma. But then a lot of my music now, especially my most latest project, is very alchemizing, uplifting, empowering, dancey, and not as contemplative as my older stuff. And so, I think that art to me is just really the full spectrum of human expression in all forms, and you can really see that when you go to like turn on anything, you on Instagram live or TikTok live or whatever, you see people, man, what did I see? Who posted it? someone posted, I don't know who it was. I feel like it was Pete Rock or someone like that. They posted this guy was doing an art piece. And the art piece was women hanging upside down in nothing but their underwear. And he was using their hair to dip it into paint. And then they're swinging from their feet and painting the canvas on the floor with their hair. That's art. That's art though. That's art. Is it not? It is, like it's art is just like expression in all forms and the full spectrum. And that is I think the beauty of it is that it there is no limits on art. And so that's why I just the easiest way to kind of define it for me is heart, because it's that expression of us.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, like one of the ones you say ways you can say it, like earth without art is eh. Like heart is he art, he is art. I don't know. That's just they literally just break the way the word is spelled. The last three letters of heart is literally art. So it's like you can't. I want to say it's like the root because I'm not an etymologist or whatever, but it's like yeah, it's right in there, right in our very nature and our beingness is a creativity and like a channel for divinity, in my opinion, at least. I don't know if that's something that I'd be based on the kind of music you make. I would think so.
Definitely. And honestly, you can simplify it as much as a channel of consciousness, I think sometimes when we talk about religion and all these other things, it can definitely deter folks. But if we just talk about divinity, spirit, as just even consciousness, right? Like art captures that. It's this channeling of that essence that no one can explain, that runs through all of us, that makes us alive, that makes us have this thought, that makes us be able to bring ideas to life. So yeah, definitely, I agree with that.
Fantastic, spectacular, amazing. I'm just trying to think right now because I've had other artists say extremely similar things, but it's like the like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So when you're dealing with somebody who's like that isn't art, the critic essentially, I think that's probably like the diametric opposite of like if you're an artist, then it's like the thing that's like the opposite of you would be like the critic. Because they're like they're and for some reason think it in their brain that they have the authority to determine what is and isn't art. So like how do you deal with the people that are like that, the critics who aren't giving you actual like constructive feedback? They're just like letting something outside of them, letting something that's from inside like their pain out onto you, projecting onto you. Like how do you deal with criticism or like the not so nice critiques?
I definitely feel like that's something I've had to like grow through in life. A big reason also why I didn't really do music or was, more like shared. I was doing it, but I just didn't like all of the artistic things that I did as a child was more just like, oh, me and my friends and like maybe show my mom, but I wasn't like, oh, let me put this anywhere necessarily, until I started developing later, like late high school into college, and then late college especially. I was like, okay, full force, gung ho, let's go. And a lot of it came from a lot of the criticisms that I received from people around me when I did. And so at the time, I would say I didn't really deal with it well because I took a lot of the criticism to heart. And I think that's something, I have a lot of Pisces in my chart, so I'm definitely a very sensitive person. Erykah Badu's quote, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit. That is like really genuinely me in my core. But I've also have a lot of Aries placements in my chart. And as I got older and really started recognizing the abuse for what it was, I found it as an empowering thing. Actually, you have a criticism, you say, I can't do this. Well, watch me. I'm gonna show you. And I lived off that for a lot of my early career of like, I'm going to show and prove. I'm going to purposely step in the ring of fire and let you burn me alive just so I can prove to you that I ain't scared of you, and that also I have what it takes to continue to show up, continue to be here, and to continue to grow in this art, and that I actually love this music and culture. And I think the more and more that I continued on the path and continued to accomplish things and you know, achieve things that I literally visualized and dreamt about, and then having it manifest and come to real life, the more that, regardless of what others say, I kind of just started blocking it out. I mean, I've gotten to a point now as an artist where like I actually almost don't go into certain spaces if I feel like I'm not going to be respected, or I used to be like, oh, I'm going to go there on purpose just so I can show these people, just so I can be that person in the room and be like, yeah, this is what I'm really about. And I'm about it. But now more, I'm like, yeah, I don't really need to be over there. I'm going to go where I'm loved. I'm going to go where I'm received. I'm going to go hang out with inspirational rapper up in Oregon and all my South Oregon peeps. You know what I mean? And that's been really healing in its own way too. And anybody who's dealing with those criticisms and things like that, that's what I would say is creating the reality you want despite those things, whether that be you just don't look at it, you know what I mean? Whether, you have to build within yourself. For me personally, I usually just hold space for the negative emotions. I think that's really important for me as a person. I think that's also very important for me in my identity as a white bodied person, to hold space for the criticisms and to acknowledge them and to take them in, as in I'm listening, I'm acknowledging what this person's saying, I'm acknowledging how they feel. And then through that process, I'm also sifting through what feels true for me, what maybe do I need to be accountable on. And then also a lot of times what is just their projection and actually has nothing to do with me. And I have to stand up for myself and love myself more and hold that space to feel sad about it, to feel the grief about it, to feel sorrow for it. But then at a certain level, put that away and know that that's not the totality of my truth. And even if I don't always get it right, I know that I do my personal best, and that's all we can do out here. And I think each person has to kind of have that heart-to-heart conversation with yourself, especially if you are an artist and experiencing a lot of criticism. You really have to be grounded in yourself and have good support around you. I also have to say, having the good support that I have around me throughout, sometimes I had it, sometimes I didn't, but I've been blessed in this time period where I'm at now to really have folks who help me to ground and help to remind me of the good that I am, and my intention and my purpose and what I'm working towards. So, yeah, it sucks no matter what though.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever make a good version of getting criticism, but I have to say, through all the criticism, I definitely have grown a lot through it. And
Well, if it's
some
a,
Go ahead.
if it's pointing you in a direction in which your process of the way that you make things can improve, I feel like that's really what like constructive feedback or like constructive criticism or feedback is really about. But when they're just like giving you their 2 cents and there's nothing in it of like, oh hey, like maybe if you made a slight tweak here, it would be this much better. Where it's just like they're just like espousing or like through vomiting up this negative feeling that they're just holding and projecting within themselves. It's like no one gets anything from that except for them. Like you're just acting like their therapist and they're not even paying you. So it's like
And
forget it.
having discernment on that can be really hard, right? Because there's been a lot of times where I tend to try and put myself in other people's shoes a lot, and have taken a lot of criticism from people and internalized that in ways that are not very healthy for me, and have caused me to want to shrink or diminish myself. And I think it's been a big part of my healing journey and continues to be a big part of my healing practice to have the discernment enough to put that where it belongs, even constructive feedback, and allowing myself to be open to it. It's definitely a trigger point for me, I would say, to speak really honestly. And I'm in a place now where I'm more open to constructive feedback and growing and collaborating as an artist than I've ever been before. And I think that for me personally comes from a lot of the inner work. Like as a child and being in a not a very healthy environment, that was constructive feedback, that didn't land very well. It was hard for me to discern really who was trying to take advantage of me, who was just trying to project their hate on me, who was, just trying to bully me. Honestly, I was bullied a lot as a kid too, because of my overly nice brainwashing of how I act. And I think, I have a tendency to being a people pleaser. And so for me, it's just been a real journey of discerning that. You do have to discern what is constructive and like knowing the person, place, and time, right? Like, is this coming from some rando internet troll bot? Or is this coming from your best friend who, has been really supportive of you putting your art out, really loves you and wants to help you grow? And what is it that they're saying? And I think that's with everything, right? No matter who would rando, troll bot, or my best friend, I try to take what they're actually saying and say, is there truth to it? Is there something in this that is actually helpful? Is there something in this that I could grow in? I'm constantly trying to grow. I don't feel like I have it at all figured out. I've had to learn every step of the way from trial and error, and have made many mistakes in my life in the way that I navigate the world and show up for myself or didn't show up for myself and others. And through that process though is really something that has helped me now to feel stronger in it, and be able to discern those things, because haters are going to hate, and that's just part of the territory. But also don't block yourself off from growth and constructive feedback. And, I think our culture also tends to not be very loving when they're giving feedback. I think a lot of people could use some training on some compliment sandwiches. And I'm all for tough love and being direct and straightforward, but I think a lot of people just get off on making you feel smaller, especially if they see you doing something where you're happy and you're glowing, or you're leveling up, and they feel like they might get left behind. Even the people you love closest will want to tear you down, and that's what hurts the most, and something you just have to really gain through experience and time, that discernment to be able to see it for what it is, at least for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's I've had to move across the country and to leave all of what I knew behind to be able to come to a real self-realization that I'm gonna get infinitely more support from people I am meeting for the first time, or like I've only known for a couple of years, versus people who've known me my entire life, because they put you in a box in their mind, and anytime you try to change and go against or break out of that box, it disturbs their mental model of who they think you are and not actually who you are. And they're less likely to try to like make the time to make the effort in their mind to like actually get to know you, because of just especially with your parents or your siblings, like people who've known you your entire life, they're just like, oh, you're this person because I spent all this time with you. But as soon as you go against that, it's like, oh, stop, like, hey, go back to the way that you were, because that was what I'm comfortable with. And I didn't enjoy that, so I just had to like go off and go on my own hero's journey and live my
Yeah.
life and find myself.
Well, good for you. And honestly, even people you do meet, just meet for the first time, they have their own trauma and pre-perceived notion and version of reality of who you are based on just your appearance. You know what I mean? And no matter what you do or say, you're always going to be the enemy to them. And I used to in the past, and it's still something I'm working through, where I would bend over backwards trying to prove my niceness and worthiness to this person, because I'm like, why do they hate me for no reason? How do I prove to them that I'm not like that, or whatever it may be? And just realizing how, grace and compassion and having those characteristics are important, but you don't need to bend over backwards to prove anything to anyone. I think bigger than anything, it's just more about building that relationship with yourself where you love yourself regardless of whether anybody rocks with you. Because, I mean, as cynical as it can sound, we are born into this world alone and we die alone, and the more I think, my journey's also been one of self-love and authenticity. And I think the more we learn to cultivate that relationship and friendship with ourselves, I truly, truly believe in community and love cultivating friendships with others. But I also think it's equally as important to be able to cultivate that with yourself, because I have seen time and time again how there can be, especially with abuse and different dynamics, a codependency of external validation and all these other things that are never going to fulfill you. And you're never going to be good enough in the eyes of everybody else. And the best thing I can do in life is just be good enough for myself. And that's been my motto lately is do it. If not for anyone else, do it for your fucking self. Because that's really what I think is going to lead you to being satisfied and happy. And I can't tell you how many times I look back in life and wish I would have done that for myself earlier instead of listening to or waiting for someone else to validate me,
Definitely kindness over nicety. I think kindness is key. Nicety is like this like superficial, like attempting to be a people pleaser kind of thing where you're just like, because kindness is like, I can hold this boundary and say no to you, and like I'm doing that out of a love and a respect for myself, and like I know it might upset you and there might be a little bit of conflict here, but it's like if I'm just nice and I just like what's the word, appease you, I guess is a way to say it. If I just keep appeasing you and try to keep the situation calm, I'm like ignoring how I'm feeling or the underlying emotion that can actually like that leads. It's just like avoiding conflict to be nice, and like that's not the way to go about it, in my opinion. And the only other thing was something else, but I guess we've been going for enough time for I could get it down to an hour. So I just wanted to let you do like your last like shout outs. I know you did it somewhere in the middle-ish, but just like shout out where the people can find you, what they're gonna find when they get there, and then I'll do my sign off and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, I just want to thank you so much for having me today here. I want to thank everybody who listened to this podcast, and I'm looking forward to coming to South Oregon. If you are anywhere in the South Oregon area, I'm coming through July 19th, 20th, and 21st with Spacewalker, inspirational rapper Namid Wolf, and Emily Raw. And even if you're not going to be out in South Oregon, make sure you find me on all socials at Moonmagic Flows, or moonmagicflows.com is my website, MOON Magic, MAGICFLOWS, on all platforms. Connect with me. Let's build, let's vibe. And I'm always rocking in different cities, so you never know when I might be coming to a city near you.
All right, people, check it out and enjoy her art, my art, whoever's art you do enjoy. Please enjoy something. Please don't be negative. It's not good for your health.
Oh, check out the album Retrograde. It's my most recent project, and it's great for alchemizing all that energy and getting you in them sweet, sweet, good feelings. You feel me?
There you go. There you go. So smile more, complain less, never, ever, ever give up until you just earn it's for your darndest, absolute best. Namaste. Have a great day. Slosh if it's nighttime soon. Like, comment, share, subscribe. All the things that makes the algorithm satisfied. I appreciate your time and energy and your attention. Until next time. Bye.